All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So glad that you can join
Hi.
us. Uh, my name is David Lutz, and I'm not going to say a whole lot about myself just yet because I'd like to be chivalrous and say, Kimberly, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody just a little bit about who you are and what you do? I think they kind of figured out what you do, but then I'll pipe in.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
So, hello, everyone. I am Kimberly Crady or Kim. Obviously, you can see my hair is a little bit longer. So, yeah, change
Mine
happens
too.
whether we like it or not. David's too. I'm from Florida. I'm there now. And yes, I'm wearing a scarf. It felt like it was 22 degrees, no joke, here this morning on the coast outside of Orlando. So that's where I'm located. I have been working with Shurley, Shurley Instructional Materials since 2005, January of 2005. So I'm coming up on some big numbers here. I started out teaching Shurley English the very first year I taught school in the third grade at a school in Tennessee, and I didn't have any training. And they just gave me a book. I was hired a week before school started, and they said, just follow the script and you'll do just fine. And here I am. I'm a national educational consultant for the company and love what I do. And I love sharing this gift, this treasure chest of gems and jewels that some people don't even know that they have in front of them. And so I like to help people see what they have, understand what they have when it comes to Shurley English, and then really utilize it so you see the benefits in the children that you teach. And with that, I think that's enough said. We're going to get right into it. I'm going to hand it back over to David. And David, tell us a little bit about yourself and your history, your background with Shurley English.
Well, it's not too different from yours in that I've been doing this for quite some time now, soon to be 20 years working for the company. And what I found most fascinating about using this curriculum is that when I got my original training to teach writing, to teach reading, to teach anything in the areas of literacy, I wasn't really very well prepared. I came out at the time when whole language was a very super important concept and a philosophy, and I loved it. And I still have tremendous respect for so many aspects of it. I really do. What I didn't know is that if you catch your kids at a certain grade level, a certain age or developmental age, oh boy, there are things that pop up and you kind of get stuck. And I really felt stuck until I got a hold of Shirley English and I saw how all of it fit together. I always understood grammar really well. I think that some of us our brains are geared to think linguistically. We talk so much about there are different kinds of smarts. And so mine was with words and language and grammar. And I desperately wanted to be able to impart that to my kids. The curriculum that I was using at the time wasn't doing that, and that became painfully obvious to me. So when I saw the logical, systematic, step-by-step spiraling approach that Shirley English takes, then that just kind of went away. I mean, it took time, and I had to follow the script, and I had to learn to think about the structure of language a little differently than what I'd ever been taught myself, and it actually enhanced what I already knew. So I was excited to get that to the kids. And so today, as we get ready to start our discussion, Kimberly, we'll get more into that in just a moment. But we also want to talk to you about just a little bit of a different format for this time. If you tuned in on Pillars 1 and Pillar 2, that would be when we dealt with the jingles first, and then we moved on into the question and answer flow. And I hope all of you that are here today, maybe you had a chance to come, maybe you didn't. But if you didn't, we'll go over that just briefly because I don't want you to feel like you've been, left out. But at the same time, today we want to be maybe a little bit more engaging. We would like for a little bit more participation. And Kimberly, if you'd like to go ahead and show us something maybe on this next slide or this next view, just a couple of things that they can do so that they can actively participate. I don't think we have it right there, maybe. But go ahead. Just leave it right
okay.
there.
You can stay right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd like you guys to take a look at in your your settings or your toolbar on the top of your screen, you're going to see a speech square with a question mark in it, and it says questions. So if you have questions, I'd like you to click that, and you can ask any question that you would like. Pretend it's like a sticky note and you're jotting it down, but just go ahead, write your question there, hit enter, and it's going to come directly to myself and David. And one of us will be able to immediately answer your question, okay? And so you're going to use that throughout today's discussion, especially towards the end where we're going to ask you to actually interact with us by using the questions box to type in some answers of your own, okay? So with that, David, did you want to add anything to that?
The only thing that I want to say is that because it's a question pane, sometimes that sounds a little confusing. You don't have to just ask a question. You can make a statement. You can obviously give us some word choices that we're going to talk about later when we get you more engaged in this process. But before we go too much further into getting that to that third pillar, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. You already know what it is because it's the title, and it's the blueprint sentences. But before that, let's do just a quick review over the first pillar and the second pillars of instruction. And let's see, I guess, Kimberly, if you'd like to talk a little bit about jingles, you can go ahead and start with that, or I can do that.
No, I'll go for it.
Okay.
I'd like to say that the jingles are just one unique piece of what makes Shurley English stand out above other people, other curriculum, not just people. I'll tell you, students also will come back, and teachers will also say that that is one part also that they will never forget about Shurley English. Because we use rhyme, rhythm, and repetition to teach the parts of speech. And how do we begin? We begin with laying the foundation for writing that starts with grammar concepts. So we teach English language arts concepts along with all the 8 parts of speech through the form of jingles. That's how we introduce like the vocabulary. We start building this domain-specific language so that we can build a foundation that evolves into writing. Okay, so if we can get them understanding the words of grammar and the English language through this rhyme, rhythm, and repetition, we know that, and it's been proven, it's going to stick. So as you can see, yes. I like to use a shaker, I like to use drums, whatever I can, musical instruments, hand motions just to jazz it up. But this is a core component of Shurley English that builds background knowledge also for the next pillar. So a simple jingle like this that teaches students about the sentence is a great strategy to use to start building up the domain-specific language while teaching them the 8 parts of speech and other ELA concepts. So I'll just quickly sing this sentence jingle. If you know it, okay, by all means, sing along. A sentence is complete when 5 simple rules it meets. It has a subject, and a verb, and it makes sense with every word, add a capital letter and a punctuation mark. Now our sentence has all its parts, but remember, subject and verb and complete sense with a capital letter and an end mark too. Our sentence is complete, and now we're through. As simple as that. Yeah! It's a great way to have some fun. Teach your students the 8 parts of speech and ELA concepts, and they don't even really know that they're learning. They're having fun while they're learning something. So I love this first pillar. I've had a lot of fun. And yeah, David, you want to say anything more about it?
No, I think you've covered that beautifully. The only thing that you should be aware of is, of course, if you've already taught these jingles to your class, the more fun that you're having with it, the more engaged you are with it, the more they will be. Sometimes I know that it might feel like it's a little juvenile, and I'd say, bravo, great, good. Our kids are growing up right in front of our faces, and it's sometimes nice to just kind of pull back and be a kid again, and this is a great way to do it. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. That'll help us do another review. Now, if you were in attendance, the question and answer flow is actually the landing point for the jingle information. And if you just take a look, you can already see how sentence foundation, what that foundation really does look like. Kimberly, you were talking about that. It's so important. And I did not, since I was linguistically minded anyway, I didn't necessarily pull all of this down to its component pieces. I just didn't do that. But I will say that for a large number of students, and maybe even a large number of teachers, parents alike, teaching and learning about grammar, it sort of became passé, 50, 60 years ago. And we were told, don't do that. Don't isolate that, because that's not going to help in the long run. It's not going to help writers. I think I personally would have said, well, yeah, you might be right. I could write whether I knew the parts of speech or not. But the problem is that a lot of kids, and I would probably say most kids, they really do need to understand a little bit more in depth about how words work together. And this is one of the ways that we show them how to do it. You take the information from the jingles and you apply it to what's basically oral sentence diagramming. And yes, sometimes, and if you were on our last session, we talked about the old way of diagramming. We'll get to that in just a moment. But this is a really good way to do it. There's a great picture of it. For a lot of brains, this is really hard. It's the parsing of words. When you're breaking down a sentence into its grammatical components to understand its structure and meaning. Great way to learn for some kids. But if you notice, when you look at the grid work, the whole sentence starts getting pulled apart. And for a lot of thinkers, that doesn't make sense. And if you really want to get down to what's important, kids have to be able to read sentences and comprehend them well, and they need to be able to keep a linear understanding of that sentence. So if you look at the question and answer flow, that is a little bit easier in my opinion, and it really proved out that way in my classroom too. Wonderful way to help kids get the parts of speech locked down. And along the way, they were also learning, capitalization, punctuation, usage rules. They were learning all of those things as well. All right, great. Now, that would basically get us back to where I think we need to be, Kimberly, to start talking about today's pillar of instruction.
Yeah, I have to say this. Can we go back one slide?
Oh, sure.
I just have to, because this is very common in the classrooms that I taught. Children with ADHD bouncing on a ball, children on the spectrum. You have a wide variety, a wide range of students in your classroom. At least I did in
Sure.
third, fourth, and fifth grade. Those were the main grade levels. And I can tell you the first two pillars are so orally and verbally engaging for your students. So if you think about children that have certain challenges, this works because they don't have to write anything down sometimes. It works really well for a dyslexic child or an adult even. And so I want to drive home the fact that this is for all children,
Right.
As long as they can see it, hear it, say it, do it. Okay. So I think it's very valuable to look at both pillars and imagine that in an inclusive classroom with all students in it, where no one's left out. That's all I got to say about that.
I wholeheartedly agree. Of course, it would be I guess it would be foolish to say that there is, one answer for all of the issues that we sometimes run into with kids learning to become literate citizens. But I can say that this ups the odds that a greater number of kids are really going to grasp it and hang on to it. And because of the brain-friendly approaches that we use, they'll hang on to it very, very long time. And I know that to be true. And as you said before, we've had people who told us in our careers here with Shurley, they've come back to us, and we're not talking about just, middle schoolers or high schoolers or college bound or in college or beyond. they're still relying on this retained information that they sometimes got when they were very small. And I think that's fascinating and really important. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move forward to the next slide. And this gets us started with their sentence blueprints. And basically, I don't know, Kimberly, do you want to go ahead and tell them a little bit why we call it a blueprint and what it really allows us to do?
Yeah, so I want to use this icon that you see on here, this making the connection. And what are we making the connection? We're making the grammar writing connection. So if you look at the first two sections where it says jingles and then Q&A flow, and then you move on to the third one, the third cog in that wheel where it says sentence blueprints. So basically what we're doing is we're building the foundation here through jingles and Q&A flow. And now what we're going to do is basically, I feel like we've dissected a sentence through the question and answer flow. Now what we're going to do is take the reverse approach, flip-flop it, and now we're going to create a blueprint with just the grammar labels on it to work on sentence composition. Now, this is a strategy for sentence structure. The idea is if we can get teach students how to really think about the construction and the words they're putting into a sentence, then we can teach those students how to continue to write sentences like that. This strategy becomes second nature to them, so that when you go to ask them to create a paragraph and you teach them how to create a paragraph, that information, let's talk about front loading here, and front loading, and then also taking off some of the load,
the cognitive load, right?
The cognitive load that the students are like, well, I don't even know how to I don't know how to create a good sentence, and now my teacher is asking me to create a paragraph or a big essay that has to be 500 words or whatever. I don't even know words to put together to create a sentence. So we're going step by step, and the next step is to take this reverse approach and create sentences. So we're working on sentence composition and construction so that ultimately towards the end, it's about creating writing pieces. And then we can take that a step farther, but I won't go there today.
Right. Now, when you talk about the reverse approach, I just want to clarify for everyone, what we mean is when you know the question and answer flow and how that literally does flow, there's a series of questions and answers. Logically, that works so well for the kids' brains. We're going to reverse that process. I sometimes also call it reverse engineering because, and we're going to get ready to show you something here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the picture as we continue to talk a little bit about what we mean by reverse engineering of the question and answer flow. And we'll move that slide to the next one. We don't have to talk about that. This is what I want to talk about right here. All right, take a look at this. Now, I'm going to be quiet for just a moment. Now, normally, when we're doing presentations, Kimberly, I know you'd agree, we kind of are hedging on the idea of this being a presentation rather than a conversation. I don't want it to be that way. But we do want to at least give you some exposure to this because this is a little bit easier to understand along with our explanations and our discussion. So you're seeing a grid here. It probably doesn't look like anything different than what some of you maybe have used. But I do want you to think a little bit about this sentence. Now, when I first started teaching the writing process, I have to say, I did not realize that in the Shurley English program, at that time, these were called practice and revised sentences. That was a long time ago. And I don't think I really did it very well. In fact,
I didn't
true
either.
confessions, I didn't know it was there, and that was partly because it was all in black and white, and so I just kind of missed it, and I felt really, really not so smart when I realized, oh man, I should have been doing this all along because this would have really helped give me a landing spot for the question and answer flow. Just like the Q&A flow was the landing spot for the jingles, everything built upon the next piece or relied upon the next piece. So notice here we have just this is what we would call an original sentence. The two young ponies pranced eagerly nearby today. I have to be honest, if I had a fourth grader that had come up with a sentence like that, I would have probably done somersaults and flips, and I would have been very, very happy about it. But we all know that that's not really what happens a lot of the time. A lot of kids, if they're linguistic, and they've been writing for a while on their own, they do a lot of journal writing. Yes, they're probably a little more adept at it, but they probably wouldn't be able to follow the blueprint. And that's what it's very important, because we want to connect here. And Kimberly, you can probably talk a little bit about that word called transfer.
Yes. So oftentimes when I would go in and I do a full day training, teachers would say, I don't see the transfer. I don't see the transfer of the grammar to writing. And oftentimes it was because they were missing this piece. Yeah, this is right. The transfer from grammar to writing, okay? So what we do is we start and only show the labels, all right? We only place the labels up on the board or on this page. If we were doing this, I would always do this guided at first, right? So the students only see the label. And then what we do is we ask them to use the same questions that they used in the question and answer flow to now create a sentence using those questions. And if you were here with us for the second pillar of instruction, where do we always start when we classify a sentence? At the core.
I know.
You know, David? Did I just say the answer right? Right.
Yep,
so you always start with the core. So if you notice, this image right here shows a more student-friendly core, where the core is intact, right? The previous slide showed it split, which is a little tricky on the brain. So we have the core here. So all we need to do is simply choose the labels that we want to place either up on the board or on this blueprint, and then we take the reverse approach and we start using the question. Well, what is my subject noun question? Ask who or what do I want my sentence to be about? Okay, once you find that answer, then you'll place that word underneath the subject noun label. Then I move on. Well, I know I need a verb. Well, what is my verb question? What is being said about whatever my subject noun is? And so that's the approach that we take. That's what David is saying is the reverse engineering. We're going to stay in the same pattern, but we're just coming at it from a different angle. Okay?
Yeah, so, it's powerful. And thank you, Kimberly. One of the things that is probably maybe a little surprising to all of you listeners out there, if you're not familiar with this process, most of the time, if we're assigning the kids to write a sentence, and again, I as early as first grade, students are going to have to write sentences. They wouldn't come up with something like you see here, the two young ponies pranced eagerly nearby today. They might come up with some pretty good stuff, but the truth is, what we want to do is we want to put a magnifying glass on every process that they must think through to write a really good sentence. And one of the things I love to tell kids is that the heart of every sentence is the verb. It's the heart of it. And so sometimes you can start with the verb, and absolutely almost every time, once they know what the verb is going to be, it opens up a world or limits the world, which may be just as important for them to come up with a subject that works with that verb. And so if you look here, let's just pretend that all of you out there in computer land, I don't know what that's called, cyber world, I don't know. Anyway, out there where you are, if you look at these words here, I would have probably done it like this. I would have said, okay, everybody, I need a great subject noun, and I need a great verb that works with that noun. Can somebody give me a noun that you think is going to be a fantastic subject for this sentence? And some kid or somebody says, ponies, and I say, yeah, so we write it down. And then we say, what is being said about ponies? You see, I borrowed the question from the question and answer flow, and all of a sudden now, what is being said about ponies? Well, they came up with a verb pranced. Most kids would probably say ponies walked, ponies trotted. They might say galloped. I'm guessing that some would say galloped. And I would have said, yeah, let's write it. And then you go on. Remember, in the question and answer flow, if you were here at the last talk, we go to the predicate part of the sentence and we finish it up. And so adverbs would come next. Just a brief word to you about this. I would never, never, never stack 3 adverbs together. This was for instructional purposes only, to show them the 3 different kinds of adverbs you can possibly use. Mm-hmm. However, I think it's easier to trim it away later than to have nothing to start with at all. And so I don't mind that too much. The other thing to be aware of is after you've hit the predicate part of the sentence, then where we're going to go back to the subject noun, and we're going to start going to the left to find adjectives or modifiers that will enhance the meaning of the sentence. If you had a kid that was writing a sentence like this right off the bat, then I'd say, okay, great, let's move on. But we won't leave it there, because one of the beautiful things that happens with sentence blueprints is we're taking through the entire process of composition and then revision. Because as you know, Kimberly, you know this, mm-hmm. most kids are pretty happy with the first thing they put on paper, and they're happy that they just got the assignment done. But we all know that if they're going to become really efficient writers, we'll call them sophisticated writers. If they're going to do that, they also have to be aware that their first effort may not be their best effort yet. We work to it. And I don't think that ever changes. I've read many testimonials by authors who talk about more of their failures and their trials and revisions and rewrites, which became a beautiful piece of written work. But you have to be committed to it. And how can a child, a student writer, ever commit to something they don't even really understand the process for? That doesn't make any sense. So we're going to make sure, no stones left unturned, that they know the process. All right. Now, Kimberly, they see how this is working out, at least everybody out there. I think that you do. Let's take a look at the exercise 2 on this page, just so you know. We want to make sure that they can then transcribe that sentence. Once we're pretty happy with it, we're going to go with it, and we write it out. And notice, we're also going to be bringing in skills such as capital letters, end marks. Occasionally, there might even be the need for internal punctuation. And then we're going to talk a little bit more when we actually get you all involved, so you can start giving us some words to put together a sentence. We'll talk about some of the language arts skills, the hidden ones, but they're the ones that cause most of the kids the most trouble. And we'll show you how we can kind of work through those hurdles. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Now, you've seen this one before. Notice in the yellow, the highlight, the subject, noun, and the verb. Kimberly, what did you call that?
I called that the core of the sentence.
You and everybody else who does anything with Shurley knows that's true. Yeah. Yes. It's the core. And so why is that different? Because most of the time, kids are going to start writing left to right, and it'll probably start with the something, something, to something, to something, something. We teach it differently in the sentence blueprint. So that means immediately they already have ideas that can buzz all over the place because they started with the core. And I would encourage all teachers of writing to think about using this as a strategy, not for every sentence, obviously, because you don't have time. But if you really want to hone in on skills that you might suspect are missing, trust me, you'll help them figure out their problems, and you'll also discover whatever other problems exist, because this becomes a beautiful assessment tool as well. All right, I do want you to take a look at the blueprint labels. That's where the red arrows are pointing. And the capital A stands for article, adjective, a, an, or the. That's in a jingle, by the way. Adjective, remember adjectives answer what kind of questions, what kind, which one, or how many. We talked about the core already. Now, go to the second section here, and you see the capital P. That stands for preposition. And we know that prepositions are only prepositions if they claim an object. Otherwise, they're probably just an adverb. But in this case, we're going to say that's a preposition. And then you also have to know that it has to have an object. So go to the very last square there, or the last segment. You'll see OP. That's the object of the preposition. And then we have an adjective that will modify that object. And then we also have another article adjective. So I wanted to make sure you understand what our labeling system is, especially if you're new to this. All right. Now, Kimberly, I think we're ready to move on to the next slide.
Okay.
So take a look. Notice these are all of the labels we just discussed, but now you're also going to notice we have 4 lines here. There's the space for the original sentence. That's where we're going to put all of these different words that make the sentence. Then we have a revised sentence section, and then finally a revision strategy line. If you look at the very bottom, do you see in parentheses the WC? That just stands for word change. And we have a chart here in just a moment to show you that will give you an idea of what revision strategies look like. We're not going to do it yet. That comes secondary. All right, let's go to the next one.
Those just snuck in there, David. Those just snuck in there.
That's okay. That's okay. This is just to reiterate, prepositions are only prepositions if they claim an object. Notice what's been highlighted. And the only reason I introduced that the way I did is that almost every preposition, if it's not going to claim an object, you know what part of speech it is? An adverb. Yeah. And so I love teaching that because even when I was learning grammar, I don't know that I really knew that. And I was pretty proud of what I thought I knew. And oh boy, I was humbled in a big way. And that may be, don't let that humble you. I mean, you all may have known this for years and years. Congratulations. I had to kind of learn it through Shurley English. I got that way. Kimberly, do you have anything else you want to say about this?
I do, actually. I want you to focus on the subject, noun, and verb core, right? So once you identify the core, then you can go on and start adding the other labels, okay? Then you can start adding like the fluff. So I kind of look at this, and no offense if Red Delicious apples are your favorite, right? Honeycrisp apples are mine. So sometimes I feel like the Red Delicious apple doesn't have, it looks the most beautiful. But when you bite into it, it doesn't have that punch that a Granny Smith or the Honeycrisp, or if you've ever had a Sweet Tango, or maybe those are from Florida, I don't know. But man,
not in the fruit form.
Juicy. They are juicy. So once you get your core, okay, I want you to have a good solid core, but make a Honeycrisp apple using the words, okay? And so this is getting your students to actually think about words in a different way and actually utilizing the words that you have on your word wall. I hope you still utilize the word wall as a tool for you for vocabulary, or the words that they have in their mental word bank, okay? Because they are going to need every bit if they want to create a Honeycrisp apple. Otherwise, we can have this beautiful format, the outside of the Red Delicious, but if you got to have your core intact in order to create all the juice that goes around it and the rest, fill in the rest of the apple.
I love that. That's a good metaphor for this. And again, I think you hit a point so important to talk about, word choice and having word banks. And we really do want the kids to have a mental word bank, obviously, because they don't always have a list to carry around. But in your classrooms, you help to kind of create that when you do word walls. And one of the things that Kimberly and I talked about before we were getting ready for this conversation is that vocabulary is very important. And that's one of the reasons I think a lot of kids really struggle, because they don't have a good call of words. They don't understand the differences and the nuances and meaning of word families. And I think it's very important that we teach that. And when you do a sentence blueprint, all of those areas are going to get a lot of work out. And that's important. We want them to work out their vocabulary and really exercise the use of these words and how they work together. Let's go to the next slide. When you saw that capital P and it was the preposition label in the diagram, and we were just discussing how if it doesn't claim an object, it's probably just an adverb. In Shurley English, we do have the preposition flow jingle that's important for us to point out. If you use this program, sometimes you might want to maybe shy away from these longer jingles. I would say don't shy away from it. Go ahead and do it. It's fun. It can be done rhythmically, and it really does help create a good foundation for when a preposition is needed. You don't have to think really hard about it. They have been, having this roll off their tongues every time they practice the jingle. So don't skip anything if you're using this program. And if you're not using this program, start using this program and don't skip this.
Right. And if these longer jingles kind of intimidate you, if you're not musically, I'm a chanter, I don't sing, but I can guarantee you if this one might have been a little bit tricky. It used to be 49 prepositions, now it's 51. Get your music teacher involved or ask a student. Nowadays, kids are always rapping and chanting and cheering, and they're trying to be like all the musicians and everything. Give them an opportunity to take the lead and shine in their way. And Jingles is a prime opportunity to let your students do that. But definitely, as long as you present this and other features and other concepts with enthusiasm, your kids will buy in. So get other teachers, other students, music teachers involved with this as well to help you create new rhythms. New rhythms are okay, just don't change the verbiage of the jingle.
Yes, good point. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, now I want you to notice, let's just, again, we're going to pretend that we have student volunteers and they've come up with the core. And so far it's animal, hid. Are you all seeing that? All right, so then we're going to go to the preposition. And again, kids may give you any number of prepositions. This one chose behind. And then of course, it has to have an object. And the order here, you can go ahead and do the article adjective next and the adjective, but I think I would be tempted to just pop on over to the object of the preposition and say, okay, behind what? Because that's what we do in the question and answer flow. Behind what? Car. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense to everybody? And again, this isn't great yet. Basically, we have animal hid behind car. Already we have a sentence. We had a sentence nailed down when we got the core finished. But now we're enhancing, we're going further, we're going deeper, we're holding a magnifying glass to this. We're making sure that they understand that if they're going to work with words well, they have to really think into this, whatever this topic's going to be. All right, so what would be the next thing? Well, we want to figure out what kind of car. And someone said, new. That works. What kind is one of the adjective questions they learn in the jingle. And then an article adjective in the jingle, a, and a, the, you just memorize them, and we tell you to do that because that's what the jingle told them. All right, so now we have behind the new car, and it's a prepositional phrase. Now let me ask you, if the students have been learning these jingles and they've been plugging it into the question and answer flow, and now they learn how to reverse engineer the question and answer flow, do you think they'll be able to recognize prepositional phrases and sentences?
Yeah.
I will tell you that even my first graders could do this, and it blew my mind. It blew the parents' minds. It blew everybody's mind because they kept thinking, I didn't learn that until I was like in 6th or 7th grade, and I still didn't quite get it. And I would just say it's probably not because it was hard. It was probably because it was really unfamiliar. And in Shurley English, we just make it familiar. Mm-hmm. What's hard about that? All right, so now take a look. We've covered the core. We've finished off the rest of the predicate part of the sentence. And now what kind of animal? Scared. And then we have another article adjective according to the blueprint. So this would be an original sentence. A scared animal hid behind the new car. That's a pretty good sentence, really, isn't it? Okay. So now let's show them what's coming up next. Kimberly, would you like to talk a little bit about this that we use?
Yeah. Do you remember the jingle that I sang? I did. I used my hands, and I did that on purpose because this is such an easy visual. And for your kinesthetic learners, they're going to need to see it, hear it, say it, do it. Okay, so this is one way that they can remember. My lower grade levels students, you can, and teachers, you can also have your students trace their hand on some construction paper, and they could create this right there. But this is important so that they remember to hand in complete sentences. It will get to the point where you can use nonverbal cues with your students. If they handed turned in a piece of a sentence blueprint just on a half sheet of paper, I'll tell you more about that later, and I look at it real quickly and I just went like this, they could probably tell you that, oh, my sentence doesn't make sense. That's how good and how much repetition that they will get, and how everything, all the concepts spiral, so that everything builds, that you've created this classroom full of English language terminology that they understand, just like they understand in geometry class or algebra class. And I'm not just talking about first, second, and third graders. I'm talking about fifth through eighth graders too. That this can be nonverbal for them, and if they just see this, they know immediately. She's talking about the sentence jingle. So I can pull all kinds of things out of all of the features and all of the strategies that we use in Shurley English. And so, hand in complete sentences so that you, as a teacher, don't have to, Johnny, Jill, you're missing a capital letter. You're missing the end mark. If they don't have the 5 parts of a complete sentence, it's not ready to be turned in. It's an accountability piece.
Yep. Excellent. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, me too. All right. So I want you to notice the revision strategy line this time. It's where the red arrows are pointing. And we want to talk about this because we're going to have you participate and make a sentence here in just a few moments. But notice, this is the original. A scared animal hid behind the new car. And there's underneath it, you can see WC-SYN, that stands for synonym, WC, word change, and then another synonym. So we have a list of these strategies for revision. And I know I probably said this before, it's so important that we explain to kids what we really mean when we want them to improve a sentence. Most of the time, as I said, they're happy with what they've written. We have to show them that, wait a minute, are you saying exactly what you want a reader to understand? And if not, then we're going to show them these strategies so that they can be cognitive about it. It's not just, okay, go sit down and try to make it better. Okay, good luck. That's probably not going to work very well. And so we want to actually give them something that says, I know that you need to see it kind of in your mind what better really looks like. And the only way to do that is you have to process through the revision of maybe what you wrote the first time isn't the best way to say it yet. Let's do that. Let's revise that. Let's beef it up a little bit. If you look at this list here, we have SYN for synonym, ANT for antonym, because synonym and antonym changes with a little bit of a cautionary tale. A complete word change to any one of those words will completely change the meaning of the entire sentence. Good. A kid needs to know that. That's what I get to word change. Number 3, WC. Word changes will change the entire direction of a sentence. And sometimes it doesn't go the direction they want to go, so they'll change it again. An added word. Sometimes it might need another modifier. It might need another word in there to really express a more complete thought. Deleted word. Sometimes we have wordy people. I'm one of those people. I have to delete a lot of words. It's very important. And so in writing, we always want them to edit. And they don't even know what that really means. But sometimes we have to edit our lives. We have to edit ourselves. You also have to edit our words. And when you're writing, it's very important to choose the best words. Not necessarily the longest sentence is going to be the best sentence. And so sometimes you have to trim off some of the fat. A moved word. This is kind of a fun thing. You can literally change the sentence structure just by moving a word around, and it's kind of a fun process. And then finally, NC. We even want them to be cognitive about, well, you said that word's good enough. and you said no change, I hope you understand why you didn't change it. It matters that you know why you did, because if you know why you did it, you would also understand if you changed it, why you changed it. They've got to know that. I don't think kids really think like that yet, and they can, but they have to slow that process down, and we have to do the slowing down for them. All right, let's go to the next thing.
David, can you back up? I want to say something about that previous slide.
Okay, go ahead.
David had mentioned the magnifying glass, and I think of this as, okay, now I want you to zoom in. I really want you to zoom way in and get real close, because if you look here at the top of this page, it says revising means looking for ways to improve or strengthen the content of your sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're starting, because we're teaching them about this process. And as teachers, oftentimes, I know as a fifth grade teacher, I didn't make the time to go through this process in writing when I needed to, because everything was just, and I know you get this, everything just kept piling on top of each other. And you're like, I don't have time to take my students through the full writing process. So what we're doing here is we are getting your students and yourself retrained in the process of strengthening content, so that when it comes to the writing process, notice I said process again, because this is not the only process, that when they get to the writing process, the revision steps in the writing process, they're already ahead. They're already understanding what revision actually means. Here, they're just revising the sentence. In the writing process, they'll revise the entire writing piece, okay?
Yes.
So know that you are planting seeds, and you are creating, you're planting seeds so that more growth will happen on down the road. Now,
excellent points. Excellent points. And I do want to say one more thing, and I'm looking at our time, and we got to get started because I want everybody to have a chance to actually see this in action. But I do want to say this. Eventually, you know what happens when they learn this process. I know we keep saying that word again and again and again, but it's true. When they learn how to do this, do you know what happens to original sentences? They start getting better.
Mm-hmm.
They just get better because the kids are starting to do it internally. They're starting to recognize, wait a minute, I already know what this word needs to be. I can already see what this sentence is supposed to be, and that's powerful. And I think we do have to teach this. Let's take a look here. Look what you see on the revised sentence. We did the word change. We used a synonym. Instead of scared, we went with frightened. Instead of animal, we got more specific. And everybody, just a clue. If you want kids to write in a more sophisticated way, don't let them get by with generic nouns. Don't let them name a grouping of something. Tell them to be specific, and they will have already come up with a valuable revision skill. So instead of just saying animal, it's skunk. Now I'm specific. And you know what that's going to do. Look at the verb. Before, animal hid, but wait a minute. Now they can start pulling into prior knowledge. Almost everybody has a skunk story. Everybody does. And so this verb darted, that's a really active verb, and it works. Notice what happened to the prepositional phrase. It used to be behind the new car. Not a bad prepositional phrase, but look at this one. Under a sporty convertible. Now, take a look. In your mind, see it. Behind the new car. Not a bad picture. I can picture a new car, but you get specific, and then you jazz up your adjective a little bit, and these are all through word changes. Notice the WCs in the revision strategy line. There's a much better picture here. The frightened skunk darted under a sporty convertible. And if you wanted to, then I could say, okay, everybody, now let's build this into a paragraph. It's almost the start of an adventure in a story somehow. Do you see what's happening? I don't know that you can achieve that kind of thinking and that kind of composing when you don't give it this kind of attention. Just an opinion. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. because we're out of time on the other things. And I don't want to miss this. We have about 10 minutes, Kimberly. We need to let everybody have an opportunity to try this. All right. So we're going to switch this up a little bit, and we're going to actually let you interact with us. This is the time for you to use the question pane. It says submit a question. As I said, you don't have to submit a question. You can throw in a word for us. So everybody, take a look. Where do we look first on a sentence blueprint? Everybody says resoundingly, at the core.
At the core.
Would somebody type in for me what you think would be a really good subject noun for us to build the sentence around?
Merman.
I love that.
Spider.
Merman. That's awesome. Spider's great. Keep going, everybody. I like merman. Okay, Lorraine, we've got to talk. I'd like to know where your brain went for that. That's awesome. And that's what's so cool about this, because this, just so you know, this should be done with a whole class at a time, and it is wildly fun. And
yes.
I would say maybe it's a little too unbridled for some of you. If you don't like that much chaos, that's fine. I always have some ground rules. Kids cannot just shout out a word. I can't pay attention to that. But I do have them raise their hand, and I call upon them. So, Lorraine, you've given us merman. Barbara, you came with spider. I at this point, I would say, everybody, which one do we want to go with? And so, Kimberly, which one do you think we want to do?
Let's go with merman. It was the first one. It's very different. Very different. Let's see what we can create.
Okay, but we have to know what mermen are, really. It's MERMEN. I think she wants us to do it plural. There we go. Let's go with that. Mermen. And I'm guessing that they're the counterpart to the mermaid. Okay. All right. So I don't really know what mermen do, but I need an active verb, a really great verb that mermen
What is being said about mermen?
Hey, that's a great question. Where'd you get that, Kimberly? That's amazing.
That's the question and answer flow. From the question and answer flow. Gargled.
Okay, so gargled. I like it. Wait a minute. That's from Lorraine also. I don't think that's acceptable. Swam. You swam. Mm-hmm. Can you come up with another? Does anybody else have a thought?
Hunted.
Oh, hunted. Ooh, I like that, hunted. I always tell my kids, give me the most active verb you can come up with, the most active one. And you know, all of you probably have done a Mad Lib before. This is a little bit like that. It's sort of an angled. Oh boy.
Angled.
Wow. Perused. Ooh,
perused.
I like where that went. Perused. Let's see. Oh golly. What do you think, Kimberly?
Darted.
Darted? Oh, I like darted.
You choose this one. Okay. You choose this one.
I want darted. I like darted because all of a sudden I'm thinking, not that everybody likes Harry Potter or the movies, but I like the scene where these mermaid kind of creatures are darting all around, and I see that in my head. So again, you know what I'm doing? I'm activating some prior knowledge there, and that's what we want kids to do, because even your most reluctant writers, sometimes they just don't know that they have knowledge. They don't know that they know. All right. So, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Lorraine. Now we've finished the core. Merman darted. Everybody use your imagination. I've got to see if I've got any more options here. Okay. So remember, in the question and answer flow, if you're familiar with it, adverbs answer how, when, where, why, to what extent, or to what condition. In the earlier grades, and I think all the way up through about 6th grade, we just go how, when, where. So we can keep it very basic for right now for our purposes. But merman darted. Do we want to go how? Do we want to go when? Do we want to go where? What do we think? Anybody have an idea?
Oh, David, I want to throw you one.
Okay.
This is something that you'll hear in your classroom. All right. Merman darted into the abyss.
Okay, I like that. That's great. They gave me the whole prepositional phrase. Is that acceptable?
No, because
why not?
When we are asking them for an adverb that tells where, we're asking them to give us a one-word answer. They'll have an opportunity to give us that prepositional phrase coming up. You can see it. but this is what will happen with most students. They want to tell you more than just that one word that's elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's very good. So we still need an adverb, though. We can't have into the abyss because it is a prepositional phrase, right? All right. So an adverb. So the merman darted. Did somebody have a comment to add to that? We need an adverb.
Maybe
Anybody have an idea?
Tells how.
Feel free to type something in. How about stealthily? There's one.
Ooh.
Stealthily.
Mm-hmm.
STEA. I have to make sure I spell this right. STEALTHILY. Did I do it? Oh, I got to change my E. Hold on. Stealthily. Got it. All right. Merman darted stealthily. Now, I'm getting a picture here, but now we can have a prepositional phrase. And I would tell you, Kimberly, if I can go back to into the abyss, I love that. So let's break that back down. I would say, oh, excellent, Katie, excellent, Kimberly, excellent, wonderful. But I just need the preposition first. So into, and we'll type that in.
Then you're still reinforcing and acknowledging how that student understood. Maybe got a little mixed up, but you still praise that child for participating with a correct prepositional phrase.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we have to prove that this is a preposition, we have to have an object that it's claiming. So we're going to go to the OP square and abyss. ABYSS. Did I spell that right? Okay, good. Mm-hmm. And then we said just the article adjective the. Thank you, Barbara. Sorry. Okay, now we go back to the subject part of the sentence. And what kind, which one, how many mermen? Anybody want to add to that? Oh,
notice how your brain has to think ahead as well.
Exactly.
Are you noticing that? You have to read, you have to imagine what you might put as the first adjective before you add the second adjective. Hairy.
I love it. What kind of merman? Hairy ones. HAIRY.
Or bearded.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Well, we'll say that for the revision. Okay, and do we want to say the hairy merman darted?
Well, we need an adjective.
I want to say a hairy merman darted stealthily into the abyss. Can I do that?
Not yet. We might
not
be able
yet.
to
I can't do that.
Revision.
Right. But did you hear what happened? And so, folks, when you're composing with kids, and we're having fun with this, and that's what I want you to do with your kids. But be aware, they will say words that don't work. And I want you to find a kind and loving and a thoughtful way of saying, hey, that's a great idea, but let's read it together. Does that sound right? Maybe we should try this one. Try this word instead. Find another way to help them ease through that, oh gosh, I did that wrong. No. We are composing, which means we also will revise later. We may not have time to get to all of it, but let's just say the hairy merman darted stealthily into the abyss. So we'll put the article. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's not an article adjective. It's a regular adjective. So it has to be. So do you want to use a number word? Like 2, 3, or several?
Or you could use
those. Let's see what somebody else said.
Which is not.
We could do 10. Let's say 10. I like that. That was from Barb.
Mm-hmm.
Barb, thank you. You're way into this. This is awesome. Okay. Now, everyone, I'm looking at our time, and we're just about done. But the next step in this, and this is not a bad sentence. 10 hairy mermen darted stealthily into the abyss. What I am wondering now, if we're going to revise this, do we have any words in the sentence that might need to be revamped, improved, changed? And I would just say, well, what do we want this sentence to say? What do we want our reader to get out of it? So I think it's kind of funny And there's nothing wrong with that. But what if I wanted to turn it around and get a little more serious? What would I change? Do you see the questions that are coming up because of this? New question here. Let's see what somebody else has said. Strong, not hairy. Okay, so let's put in our revised sentence line, strong. And then in the box below that, let's ask ourselves this question. Is it still an adjective? What kind of merman? Strong? Yes, it's still an adjective. So our strategy here is we just did a word change because they're not related as antonyms. They're not related as synonyms. So this was a word change. Now, everybody, we're running out of time, but I would love to finish the sentence. The fact is, we could change every word in this composition if we wanted to, right? And we won't carry this out any further, just in interest of time. But I do want to talk about exercise 2. So let's say that we settled on 10 strong mermen darted stealthily into the abyss. On exercise 2, you're always required to write this sentence, and then did you notice that I put a capital T on 10? We also did it in the labeling box. However, sometimes some kids don't do that. Okay, fine. Now's the time to talk about that. Capitalization. You always capitalize the first word of every sentence. And then we have to decide, are we just going to say this as a statement, or would this be more exclamatory because it has a little bit of, power to it? What do you think, Kimberly? An exclamation point?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. And so if I were teaching
you don't see mermen
then I
very
would say,
often.
let's read it. Right. I've never seen one. And I understand they're very hairy and strong. But anyway, what matters here is that we're helping kids see the minutia of language. And I love the word minutia because that's full. I mean, our language is full of tiny little pieces that we might not ever get to if we don't do this with kids. Notice at the very, very bottom, we have a sentence checklist. We now have our capital letter. We now have our end mark. And we do have our subject. We knew that was merman, so we can check that. That's fine. And we also have a verb that works. And it makes sense, and it's pretty active. Does our sentence make complete sense?
Yeah.
I think so. And I also think this would be the great seed for a paragraph or a great seed for a story and something you can take off on. Now, I know that we had to kind of go through this quickly. To be honest, this process is a fairly quick it's an exercise. It's a strategy that you do in your classroom. So if you're telling yourself, I can't do that. I'm sorry. We don't really have enough time. Yes, you do. And it matters because the kind of skills these kids are developing in this process. I mean, let's just say one more thing real quick. What about merman darted that core? What if we say something up there that said a verb that doesn't make sense? Merman darts stealthily into the abyss. Now, we know our tuned ear says you can't say 10 hairy mermen darts stealthily into the abyss. You can't do that. Why? Because the subject and the verb also have to agree. When are you going to come up with that skill, except in an exercise where they have to underline something or they cross something out or they have to circle something? We do some of that too. But what matters now is we need to give kids hands-on experiences. When you deal with the first, second, and third pillars in Shurley English, you are delivering a complete model of what we want writers to learn how to do and then to become and to develop. I want to thank everybody who participated and gave us some volunteer words, and I would love to have everybody be a part of this. I can't see all of them because it just keeps piling in there, but I will tell you that for you to take your time to learn how to do this, or at least talk about it with us, it's meaningful. Meaningful to me, Kimberly. I'm sure you agree. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. And Kimberly, do you have any closing comments that you'd like to make?
I want to say one thing. You can do this in your class tomorrow. First thing, you can do it as a morning routine. It could develop into a morning routine. I used to do that. But you could do this in your classroom tomorrow as an activity, a guided activity and have just as much fun as we had tonight. Thank you all for sharing your evening, your late afternoon with us. Come back. We're going to be on the lookout. We're going to have another one of these coming up, I believe, in January, right?
I think that's right. I don't know if
we're going to take December off. Yeah. So be on the lookout for more Shurley English live teacher talk.
Hey, if you like this, let us know. Thank you. Thanks for being part of it.
Bye, you
All
guys.
right, everybody
Thanks
have a good night.
for having us.